Let's get more now on the legal and political fallout from all of this. And for that, we're joined by NBC's justice correspondent Pete Williams and our political director, Chuck Todd. Pete, we will start with you, sir. If the president did, in fact, instruct Michael Cohen to lie to Congress, does that definitely constitute obstruction? And if it does, what could the consequences be for the president?
Yes, and don't just take my word for it. The nominee to be Attorney General, William Barr, has said this both in his testimony to Congress this week and in that memo that he wrote last June, unsolicited, when he sent it to his colleagues at the Justice Department. He said, if a president knowingly suborns perjury, and that's what this would be, that's what that term means, or induces a witness to change testimony, and so on, then he, like anyone else, commits the crime of obstruction. Now, to be clear, it's not illegal to tell somebody to lie to cover up for political problems. But if it's true that the president directed Cohen to lie to Congress, then that would be a crime. But of course, the question is, as has come up repeatedly in this, can a president be charged with a crime? And that's something that the Justice Department says the answer to is no, and presumably Mueller has to abide by that opinion, longstanding opinions from the Office of Legal Counsel. So it becomes more of a political, potentially, than a legal matter.
Thank you for segueing, Pete, so perfectly to Chuck Todd, who also joins us on the politics of this. And you know, Rudy Giuliani, the president's lawyer, said last night, you know, if you believe Michael Cohen, who is, of course, an admitted liar, I got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. Here's the thing. The report states that the special counsel has emails, text messages, and a cache of other documents that corroborate this claim. How big a deal is this politically if Congress is told, hey, the president told a witness to lie to you?
You know, Savannah, in the Trump era, we have a hard time sometimes undercalibrating, you know, and everybody's like, oh, my God, this is it. This is it. You can't overstate how significant this development is, with the caveat of the if true. I mean, this is going to be a lot of the if true. But if Mueller has the receipts, which is what this report says, that he has, it's not just Michael Cohen's word, because the fact of the matter is he is an admitted liar. But if he has the receipts, and let's also remember, the president was afraid of the truth that Michael Cohen knew. You know, we're talking about instructing somebody to lie to Congress is something that, by the way, both Richard Nixon would have been impeached for, and Bill Clinton was. What he was obfuscating is pretty damning. This idea that the Trump Tower project was much more expansive and much more on the front of the president's mind. So clearly the president was also afraid of what Cohen could tell Congress if he told the truth.
All right. Well, Pete Williams and Chuck Todd, it's good to have your perspective. Of course, Michael Cohen testifies in early February. And Chuck, I know you'll be unpacking all of it on Sunday and Meet the Press. Also, Chuck's got an exclusive interview with Senator Mark Warner, the top-ranking Democrat on the Senate Intel Committee, which has been looking into all of this.